welcome to Flightdeck Live, powered by our friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code Flightdeck 10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. I'm Tim Capper. Wow, I'm really having a problem tonight, along with Cliffy D. Pine. How are you, buddy?
Doing good. Do we want to reschedule this? I mean,
Well, considering that my phone here just won't shut up and trying to set everything up properly, it's just bad Sunday night. Say I can't even get what day it is. I tell you, buddy. Uh,
time is a flat circle, I guess.
it's something, man. It's something. Yeah. Anyways, it is Sunday. It is the day after all the teams have had to make an announcement specifically on what when it comes to who's going to be on their roster for 2025. And like we've done in years past, we wanted to come along here and give our thoughts on the guys who are going to be part of the roster in 2025 for the Montreal Alouettes. And as usual, Cliff, we've come across certain things where there are some prizes, and I would you call us? I mean, I think everywhere we always seem to have an utter shocker. I think we had a couple of those this year's also.
Well, we even referenced it on Friday's post game Flight Deck Live. Is that we always seem to get at least one or two moves that are, you see them and you're like, what the f? Like really? Like real head scratchers, right? So this year we didn't get one. We got a couple moves that were just dumbfounded by, but one has to think that, okay, this team clearly knows what they're doing. Again, past 2 years, this Alouettes team has been nothing but successful by and large. So I'm not saying that the moves they make are the perfect ones, but you have to have a little bit of faith that the moves are made, even if we don't completely understand them, are the right ones for the 2025 season.
It's true, and again, sometimes we look at the names, and it's as you said, as you and I speculated on the last episode of Fight Deck Live and the post game show from for Ottawa the other night, we had a couple of ideas of certain things that players that were and weren't going to make it, and as you said, certain bubble players, as you put it, and stuff like that too, that were going to make this roster and weren't. And it's again, it's I agree with you. It's all about what the organization has planned. It doesn't mean we won't see some of these guys again show up on roster this coming season. Obviously, we don't want injuries, but sometimes it takes an injury to bring like a Reggie Stubblefield-ish type of player back to the nest in order to make him a name in the CFL.
It's kind of funny how we have these certain types now, these certain scenarios, and we've just given them names like that, like the Reggie Stubblefield situation, which for those of you who are new to the Alouettes and new to following along the Alouettes flight deck, in 2023, there was a young stud football player named Reggie Stubblefield who was invited to camp, played absolutely lights out football, but was one of the final cuts made on the final cut day. And a lot of people were really surprised because, wow, this guy's really good. He's really got talent. He's going to be a superstar. And the Alouettes had let him go for, we always say it's got to be the numbers, right? You can only keep so many players on the team. There's only so many roster spots. And unfortunately, Reggie was just a victim of the numbers game. Well, lo and behold, as Tim sort of alluded to, we had a couple of injuries on defense that necessitated Stubblefield being called back to the Alouettes. Thankfully, he was available because he was this close to signing with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, which, as you know, for the 2023 Grey Cup, he could have very well been playing for the other team that the Alouettes ended up facing in said Grey Cup. But Reggie came back, played absolutely phenomenal football as everybody expected him to, became a superstar in the process, and yes, was an integral part of that Grey Cup run and leading up to, including the Alouettes winning in 2023. As a result, Reggie unfortunately suffered a really horrific injury last season. Was not re-signed by the team. He has now since become a member of the Hamilton Tiger Cats and will continue his football career. But that's just one scenario, for example, where you don't make the team, and I'm sure it's frustrating, and you're confused, you're upset, you're disappointed. But at the same time, it should serve as motivation to stay ready. Keep your cell phone charged because you never know when that phone call is going to come. And no, we don't want it to come as a result of current Alouettes being injured, but for a lot of these youngsters, that could be the only opportunity they have to get back onto this team and showcase what they can do. And for any of the players that were cut that find themselves in that scenario, again, like I said, you can't hope for injuries. I mean, that's kind of morbid to think about, but you just never know when your opportunity is going to come or how it's going to come. The only thing I can suggest, again, as a member of the media, as an observer of this football team, is just stay ready, because you truly never know when they're going to pick up the phone and give you that call.
Exactly. And I know I said that, and I think Paul was already chimed in. And I think it's one of the things we are going to be talking about for sure. And I did some quick research before the show tonight, and I think that's possibly, it's really more or less for my being kerfuffled at the very beginning. So I apologize to everybody. But where do we want to start? Do we want to start with, because I said, if anybody's curious to know how we thought when it came to bubble players prior, please go back and watch the last episode of Flight Deck Live, which is in our archive. And it was done, post game from the Ottawa game, the last preseason game, the preseason finale. Where do we want to start? You want to start with the guys who were cut, or do you want to start with the guys who were put on the practice roster? Because it may give some people a kind of idea of who did and who didn't make it, and then we can get to the big surprises.
Let's start with the practice roster. And also, too, we'll include the retired list, which, folks, in case you're wondering what retired means, like, it's not these guys have decided they don't want to play football anymore. There's it's kind of weird why it's named the retired list, but we'll explain shortly just what that entails. I may as well start with that, because there's 4 players that were added to the retired list. And incidentally enough, they were all draft picks of the Montreal Alouettes in 2025. On the retired list now is Isaac Galliardez, I hope I'm saying that right, Riley McLeod, Gabriel Lassard, and Gabriel Maisonneuve. Now, they are not retired in the sense of they've decided they don't want to play football anymore and they're off to greener pastures. It's actually quite the opposite. These gentlemen are going back to university, and they will go back to their university club, put in another year of playing outstanding football. The Alouettes will still retain their rights because they have not been released. They've basically been told, we're not going to keep you on the team this year. Go back to university, get another year of education in, ball out with your club, and then in training camp 2026, you're back here, and you're going to be hopefully a member of this organization going forward. That's happened numerous times with a lot of players over the years, and this is not the end of the road for them. It's just a detour, a slight detour, a rest stop, if you will. I guess that would be the best way to describe it. So for those 4 young men, they're going to go back to school. No question in my mind. These are top quality players. They're going to play outstanding football. It's going to be even more interesting, though, when you got Galliardez versus both Gabriels, because it's Laval against University of Montreal playing each other. So those games are going to be interesting because, you're going to be competing against one another, but at the same time, you guys are kind of sort of teammates too. So in the grand scheme of things, that's going to be very interesting to see as well. And Riley McLeod, I know he's pursuing a very complicated degree. So for him to go back to school, still showcase what he can do playing football as well, I think it's just going to make him a better person on and off the field as well. So definitely wishing him all the best in that. Now let's go on to the practice roster. Now, this was a little bit of the additions of this were a little surprising. I won't go through all the names, but a lot of the names, I'll be completely honest, some of them I just didn't notice. It's not that they had a bad camp or an outstanding camp. They just kind of blended in, which maybe that was by design. I'm unfortunately not part of the process when it comes to picking practice roster players, but a lot of these names I'm going, really? Okay. All right. Well, I guess if that's the direction they're going, that's the direction they're going. So most notable names on this list would be Don Callis, DB from Troy, Jalen Wayne, wide receiver from South Alabama. Well, that's 2 members of the Sun Belt Conference right there. So that's pretty cool. Katie Davis, who, by the way, had a monstrous tackle this past Friday against the Ottawa Red Blacks and just lit up. I think it was the punt returner for quite the lick. And my goodness, that was quite the play there. So he definitely earned himself a spot on this team. Just happens to be right now on the practice roster. Also notable is Vincent Delille, DB from Laval. He was actually drafted in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. 2022 or 2023, if I'm, again, one of those two. Same idea. He was drafted, sent back to school for another year, came in, competed, and now is essentially a member of the Montreal Alouettes, just on the practice roster. And both global punters that were selected in this year's draft, Joshua Sloan and Joshua Hutley, who you saw in action this past Friday. Once again, we've got global players on the practice roster, and we also have global players also occupying the kicking duties for the Montreal Alouettes in Jose Maltos and Joseph Zima. So I guess replacing global with global, if God forbid Zima or Maltos goes down to injury, then you've got global spots. So you don't have to worry about shuffling the roster or changing the ratio or anything like that. So in a sense, that's a good thing. It's just kind of wild to think that your global players, all four of them essentially make the list. In addition to Nureddin Nui, offensive lineman from Nebraska, he was drafted last year's global draft. Once again, now a member of this organization yet again. So definitely going to be very interesting to see. For me, though, like when I look at some of these other names that are on this list, as I said, these are names that didn't exactly stand out. Again, not in a bad way, but at the same time, I can't really speak too much as to what the coaching staff saw versus what we saw in their limited amounts of action, whether it was in training camp or in the 2 preseason games. I mean, like none of these names really stood out in a way that made me say, "Oh yeah, definitely, 100%, that guy belongs on this team."
Right.
Aside from Jalen Wayne, he did have a couple of nice catches. Don Callis also too, playing in the secondary. Again, made good, solid plays. Again, not outstanding, but sometimes you don't need to be outstanding. You just need to show that you can follow your assignment as given to you by your coaching staff. And it seems to me that these guys, they definitely want to see more of them. So as a result, they're here on the practice roster.
Anyway, you look at some of these things that they said. Some of these guys, we got to see very little play from these guys, other than what we saw, whether it be at camp or at the intra squad game. Because the intra squad game was actually very interesting, obviously, when it came to some of these guys. So we get to see them for the very first time in real action. Um, I mean, are there any? And it's funny to say it this way because we've done this for the last couple of years. Are there any players besides, because we'll talk about the release players in a couple of minutes, are there any players that made the practice roster that you're really surprised about that actually made the practice roster?
Honestly, I go, so as I just alluded to, all of them. And again, I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just the fact that, again, aside from Don Callis and Jalen Wayne, who we did get to see in action throughout the preseason, but they didn't make what I would call like monumental plays that, stuff that made me sit up and say, "Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely." So to me, I there's no way I can say that without sounding disparaging, I guess, and I'm not trying to be. That's definitely not my intention.
No, no,
If
no. And,
anything,
I guess I was kind of hinting at. Are you surprised there are any guys that made the practice roster that you felt should have made the active roster? Trying to stay from the negativity, obviously, of guys being where they should have been or where they should have been released, should have been on the practice roster or active. I'm just curious if there's anybody here that you were surprised that made the practice roster, not the active roster.
honestly, no. I think all those guys, I'm not surprised to see them on the practice roster. I would have truthfully been surprised to see them on the active roster. So
Mhm.
as far as the practice roster goes, I'd say that is the practice roster right there. I mean, again, not negative, not anything, but if anything else, it's just going to provide an opportunity for them to showcase what they can do to the team on a bigger scale. And God willing, if injuries happen to this organization, then these guys are going to be called upon. They're going to be the first people that are called upon to come up and step in for the active roster players. So it's all about being prepared. It's all about knowing when your number is going to be called, that you got to be ready to go. And as our friend Vernon Adams always says, you got to stay ready. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So hopefully these guys take that to heart and they stay ready to go, because you just never ever know when your number is going to be called.
No, that's true. And obviously, as Paul mentioned, talked about it before, John is also expressing it quite a bit, and we are going to talk about this. He's talking about is what happened to Fletcher, though. Did something happen to him behind the scenes? Top three running back, coming back out of the backfield, and had a monster season last year as his. I think it was a career year for Fletch, and
Mhm.
obviously we can see him there. Walter Fletcher was released. This is the guy who just recently re-signed a 2-year contract with the Alouettes,
Yep.
and I think it was a $17,000 signing bonus.
Mhm.
So that's money, I don't wanna say not well spent. It's hard. We love Fletch. We love Fletch. And this is hard to I guess yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, but let's go over these guys, and then we can talk about how our feelings are on some of these guys that really surprised us.
Yeah, no, to sort of piggyback on what you were talking about, yeah, it was definitely a shock to see Walter Fletcher on that list for so many reasons. Most notably, he was a member of the Grey Cup winning team in 2023. Did contribute to it, even though William Stanback was the number one back for the Alouettes. I mean, when he went down to injury, it was Walter Fletcher who stepped in and performed quite admirably.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, when he was acquired by the Alouettes in 2022 to replace the out for the year William Stanback, Walter Fletcher did, I felt, was an absolutely phenomenal job. I mean, he had showcased that he definitely deserves to be a member of this team, definitely a superstar in the Canadian Football League with his play. Last year, I mean, he had just as good a season as anyone can expect. And I still stand by the fact that, as far as I'm concerned, he's the best two-way player in the Canadian Football League, whether it's receiving, rushing, you name it. You give him the rock, he's going to make magic happen. To the point where I truly am dumbfounded as to why the Alouettes decided to go with the other running backs, who we'll discuss momentarily. It's definitely a bold move to make, and again, it definitely speaks to the confidence that this team has in the running backs that ultimately did make the final roster. It just, on first blush, seems unfathomable that you would basically take arguably one of your best players from 2024 and basically tell them you were good, but you weren't good enough. And again, that's a decision they've come to, and I'm sure fans are disappointed as well that Fletch isn't going to be a part of this team in 2025. And well, I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? Everybody loves football, but football loves nobody. It very much is, what have you done for me lately? Doesn't matter how amazing a year you had. Doesn't matter that you were part of this Grey Cup winning organization 2 years ago. It's, what have you done for me lately? And it's kind of funny to think about too, because I felt he had a strong camp. I think he did everything that was expected out of him. I'm not sure what more he could have done to shown his worth, especially the fact that he was signed to a 2-year extension, given a signing bonus. So I mean, like,
And left at home for the second preseason game, which I don't I'm sure it's happened before. It doesn't seem unfathomable that occurs, but what? You know what I mean? It's but let's look at some of these other name players that Alouettes fans should recognize. Bryce Cosby being one of them. We'll
yeah,
give that one there. Obviously, Walter Fletcher, Josh Donovan,
hmm
Tyjon Lindsey was another one. Jose
yeah,
Barbon, and then obviously I know that it's with the hometown guy, Jonathan Senecal, was released. Um, I mean, out of besides those there, Cliff, any of the other names that I haven't mentioned, are you surprised about? Do you think that they gave a good showing in the 2 games themselves, and you thought that that they deserved a second chance, whether it had been on the active or practice roster?
uh, yeah. There's definitely a couple of names that definitely stand out amongst the ones that you had just mentioned. Christian McFarland, for example. As far as linebacker goes, I don't know what more he could have done, because I mean, he played like his hair was on fire this past Friday. I mean, he was just
Hmm.
lowering the boom on players for the Red Blacks and just making plays happen. He was on specials. He was doing outstanding work. I mean, I would say he played one hell of a game, like to the point where I just felt like, okay, there is no way this guy does not make the team. Worst case scenario, practice roster, because I mean, he was just playing, I felt, to be lights out football. And I guess the Alouettes, maybe it came down to the numbers. I think that's the only thing that could sort of explain it, because I mean, once again, what more could he have done to make this team,
Yeah.
or at least get on the practice roster? And I'm befuddled by that. But like I said, maybe it truly is not. Maybe he is this year's Reggie Stubblefield, as I alluded to earlier.
Yeah.
You never know. Another name that I guess kind of surprised me was Tyjon Lindsey, even though you had mentioned him, but he caught a touchdown in the game against Ottawa. Was definitely playing very decent, doing some returns as well, which was also, again, you're not trying to take away the job from James Letcher, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have that backup in case, God forbid, he gets hurt. And Lindsey, another one of those guys, another one of those soldiers who was doing everything that was asked of him and going above and beyond. And I want to believe that in these cases, it really did come down to, well, we've got a lot of these guys on the team that can do those things and possibly do them better. And it just came down to being the odd man out, which is, again, unfortunate. But as I talked about, like, football just is a cutthroat, great game, but a really lousy business.
One thing I mentioned it during the last Flight Deck Live after the post game show for the Ottawa game. I really wanted to find out more about Kasim Ferdinand. I really did. And if anybody didn't see the last episode, and first, why didn't you? Second of all, the story behind him is just phenomenal. He is a guy who he was playing in Montreal, following in the footsteps of his father, who played for the Montreal Concord. He never knew his father, never got to see him play because I think his father passed. Um, his father passed before he got to know him. But it would have been just a great story to be able to see, to be there, playing his father's footsteps, so to speak, etc. But um, uh, all to naught. Senecal. I'm going to talk about him. By the way, I mentioned to you off air, I think it was for the Jose Barbon drop in that game versus Ottawa. Something
Yeah.
told me right there we're about to get our Homer Simpson your cut moment. I really
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
because that's a catch that Barbon should have had. It really should have had.
Yeah, and he spent last year on the practice roster as well, so it's not like he doesn't know the system. He doesn't know how these quarterbacks work and everything like that. I mean,
Yeah.
as you said, that's the kind of catch that, like, it almost sounds cutthroat to say, but you just can't be making mistakes like that at this point of your career. I mean, you this isn't your first rodeo when it comes to being with the Montreal Alouettes, so yeah, especially if you're playing in that second preseason game, like, that means essentially this year meant you were on the bubble. You had a chance, like, you had to do some really phenomenal things to make sure that you somehow found a way to be on this team, whether it was active roster or practice roster. And yeah, drop like that. Yeah, sometimes that's, as cruel as it sounds, that's all it takes. It's like, okay, seen enough. I'm sorry. This ain't for you, kid.
I mentioned to you, and this was off air because I didn't know how it was going to come off if I did it during the broadcast on Friday. I am actually not surprised that Jonathan Senecal got released. I think if everybody saw how the game ended, where Senecal was pulled in favor of James Morgan just to finish up the last two plus minutes, I guess we could say, I think it kind of showed that's where it was that it unfortunately, Senecal's time in Montreal was over. And he didn't get that much time to really uh, show what he could do, with all honesty. But again, um, you have you had the quarterbacks that we currently had on the roster. I'm sure were hard to unseat, and unfortunately, Senecal became part of that list where he will not be currently. I guess we could say currently still playing for the Montreal Alouettes. So unfortunately, it is what it is for our 7th round draft pick.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny too, because we talked about it too during the show. Like, is there a way that you could keep all 5 quarterbacks? Would you want to even keep all 5 quarterbacks? And I mean, again, if the idea was to somehow find a way to stash away Senecal, what do you do with the other 4? I mean, again, Davis Alexander's not going anywhere. MBT's not going anywhere. Caleb Evans proved that he's still a very capable quarterback in that first quarter against Ottawa this past Friday. And James Morgan obviously had himself a hell of a camp. He played extremely solid, showed casing what he can do. And also, he basically made the case like, listen, you're not cutting me. I'm doing exactly what's needed of you. You're going to find a spot for me. And that's essentially what the Alouettes have. He basically forced their hand in saying, okay, yeah, we got to keep this guy on the team too. So 4 quarterbacks, which already is a lot because you can dress 3 on game day. and then you've got a fourth, essentially, ultimately, who's going to end up on the practice roster more often than not. So now the question becomes: has Caleb Evans done enough? Like, has he recovered enough from his injury? I'm going to say yes. I mean, he ran in that touchdown and looked absolutely phenomenal in doing so. Had that great pocket presence. Even, I mean, he definitely looked like he's well healed from his injury from last season, and can definitely step in if called upon. James Morgan, same thing. He definitely looks strong. He definitely looked like he belongs on this team as well. Was not perfect by any stretch. He did have a couple of iffy throws, but everybody's going to have that no matter what. Honestly, he belongs on this team as well. Even if it is you stick him on the practice roster and hope and pray that nobody else decides to come calling, which absolutely, that's one thing we got to talk about with the practice roster. Any of those guys could be signed by another team almost instantly. That is kind of the risk you run of putting someone on the practice roster, is that if all of a sudden another team has a need for said player, they can sign him. They'd have to start him right away. He'd have to be part of the active roster. You can't sign him and then put him on your practice roster in hopes of being able to stash him. It doesn't work that way. But I think James Morgan more than likely will be, I don't want to say the odd man out in the sense that he's going to end up on the practice roster, but
yeah, that's the interesting note I wanted to make, by the way. First note right here from Denny in chat. I almost mentioned it too on Friday about Senecal not ready. He seemed out of place. And that's the kind your comment too I want to talk about right now is as of right now, if anybody noticed that they paid attention to the active and the practice roster, the Alouettes currently have 4 quarterbacks on their active roster. 4.
That's right.
I don't think either of us expected that. I don't know if anybody in Alouettes Nation expected that to occur, to have 4 active quarterbacks. So it goes a little bit to your comment. Is Caleb 100%? I agree with you. I think so. Yes, his read on that first touchdown pass in the first quarter after the turnover, and then his run. I think I'm going to call it his peace out, because I think he did the peace out to the defender, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, something, and it may be to your point. It may be to your point that if you put them on the practice roster, is another team going to pick up one of the quarterbacks? Maybe that's the case. That's what is happening. So I don't know. And maybe, well, I said once we get closer to the game time on Friday, when Thursdays, if there are changes to the roster itself online, or once we actually see the depth charts that come out on Thursday, maybe there'll be some slight modifications, but who knows? Maybe it's just a matter of waiting to see what other teams did. To who they were going to keep in place on their practice roster, because we've seen some stuff around the CFL, by the way, with some other teams too. Some guys that we expected to either be on the practice roster or be on a 6 game, and they're nowhere to be seen, and they're not even on the active roster.
Yeah,
which is a surprise in itself.
Yeah, I'm going to touch quickly on what Denise said too about Senecal looking out of place, and he's not wrong. I mean, I guess we're going to we see now that there is a big difference between being a superstar in U Sports and then being a superstar or potential superstar in the Canadian Football League. It is a big jump. I don't care what anyone says. Anyone who expected Senecal to make the active roster was dreaming in Technicolor, or happens to be Jonathan Senecal's parents, perhaps. Maybe those are the only people that were expecting him to be on this team.
Again, or the UDM fan base.
Yeah, and listen, I don't blame them. Like, he had a great U Sport career. He won a great Vanier Cup, Heck Crichton winner. I mean, the guy definitely knows how to play football, especially at the quarterback position. But my God, it is so tough to crack. And I thought maybe, just maybe, if only for the the narrative, if you will, of a former Carabin becoming a part of this Alouettes team, like so many have before him. Maybe they find a way to keep him on the practice roster and let him learn like what Davis Alexander did back in 2022 and grow and develop. But maybe the Alouettes right now are just not in the quarterback development business so much as that, they're in win now mode. They 2 years removed now from winning a Grey Cup. It's not so much that the pressure is on them to win, but at the same time, you've got such a talented roster. You've got to, you're built to compete. You're built to compete, and you're built to win. You're not built to help along a Canadian quarterback. As great as the story as it would be, especially in the Canadian Football League, because you've got young Canadian talent, not just in the CFL, but also in the NFL, potentially, as far as Canadian quarterbacks go. Could Jonathan Senecal have been a part of that? Again, if the right environment came along for him to do that, and I thought maybe Montreal could have been that environment for him, but ultimately, the name of the game right now is winning football games, not developing quarterbacks. So it's unfortunate for young Senecal, but I just hope that not too many people went out and bought that number 15 jersey because, oh, well, I guess now it's a collector's item.
Human chimes in. He says, since the spring leagues have been running, most CFL teams carry a fourth quarterback early on in the season. And yes, being on the active roster, they're being fully paid, other than being on the practice roster and getting a mere percentage of what that actually is. Okay. Let's talk about the Fletch in the room. Does this surprise you? Because Walter Fletcher had a career year last year, as we have seen before in the past. Out so far, when it came to Stanbeck and it came to Fletcher, the Alouettes have had quite a few wide receivers who have become great out of the backfield as a dual threat, and Fletcher really did prove that himself last year. I mean, sure, he didn't get to 1,000 yards, but he was great not only out of the backfield, but also catching passes. So it
Yeah.
really makes everybody wonder. And I don't know if we're really going to get a true sense of why he was cut, whether it be Fletcher speaks out or whatnot. But this to me is very interesting, Cliff, because if you look at our current roster when it comes to running backs, and I did a quick historical check for Alouettes running backs over the years, and reached out to CFL stats guru Steve Daniel just to get some verification on this. It is very possible that, and I don't think it really matters who's going to start, because technically Stevie Scott has the most quote unquote CFL experience, even though he was on the practice roster for most of the year. Stevie Scott.
Hold on. I'm going to correct you there just a second. Sean Thomas Erlington technically has the most experience. However, because of the ratio that we all know and love, yes, by default, Stevie Scott has the most CFL experience at running back as an American player. So, sorry.
Fair.
Continue.
Now, if Stevie Scott is named RB1 for the year, he will become the first Alouettes running back with the least amount of CFL playing experience since 2002, and that was Lawrence Phillips.
Yep.
So
that's a blast from the past, folks.
thoughts on this potential? No, again, we won't know the listing until we see the depth chart. Okay. But still, thoughts on this, Cliff? You're going from guys, I understand STE he got some looks and he looked good. STE looked good because he's had experience, CFL experience.
Yeah.
But I just don't get it. Every year, I mean, you talk about going back with our running backs, whether it been from Fletch, Stanback, Tyrell Sutton, Avon Colburn, Brandon Whitaker, and so on. The Alouettes have always had a running back in waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Now, this is not a slight to STE, but still, in my opinion, the Alouettes, the guys that are currently on the roster, I don't think they were ever thought of being the next RB1 in waiting.
It is absolutely wild to think about. And again, to the point, in case people are asking, well, then why don't you just make Sean Thomas Erlington RB1? Well, folks, again, for those of you two that are still just learning about the CFL and how it works, we have this little thing called the ratio, where you can only play you have to play a certain number of Canadians on game day. Now, if you make Sean Thomas Erlington the starting running back and he goes down to injury, his replacement has to be Canadian as well. The Alouettes currently do not have a Canadian running back on the active roster or the practice roster. They drafted a running back this year, but he was sent home for family reasons, so we don't need to get too much into that.
No, but you are right. I had forgotten about that too, but you are right about that.
Yeah, so that's why you can't just, yes, Sean Thomas Erlington will get carries. He will definitely get a chance to showcase what he can do in the backfield. He just can't be the starting running back.
So we had Sean STE and we had Joshua Antwi last year until before Antwi was traded to BC. So we had two Canadian running backs on the roster.
Well, that's just it. And again, you would talk about the three-headed monster that was Walter Fletcher, Joshua Antwi, and Sean Thomas Erlington.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the starting running back was an American. Now, again, a national could supplant them afterwards, but again, if your starter is a national player, the backup has to be a national player. That's
Yeah.
that's the letter of the law, folks. I mean, and that's why STE will get carries this year, but he cannot be the starting running back unless the Alouettes do go out and get another national running back to serve as his backup. Could that be Keanu Yaz? Could that be Keanu Yazbek, who was drafted and is listed as a running back? Maybe, but in this scenario, it really is going to come down by default to Stevie Scott and Travis Theis. Oh God,
Theis.
All right,
yeah.
Theis. That's his name. Don't wear it out.
Keeman also said Fletcher's the best receiving back in the league, and it fits Moss ball, screen ball offense best in the league. Yes, it is surprising. Got to be an injury. What's funny is that I was going to ask you this question too. Is that remember right now certain American players can be designated Canadians. Mm-hmm. Can that be the case when it comes to the running backs here for the Alouettes? Can Scott be labeled Canadian for the game?
I believe he could. I tend to think, though, that they would probably end up having one of the D linemen listed as a natural Canadian.
Because I get it, but again, I think it goes right back to your thing. If Scott goes down, God forbid STE goes down, then what? So it's all ratio thing. We've seen if anybody watches the depth chart throughout the year, you'll see certain guys will always be listed as a designated Canadian, and it's usually flat. It's been usually Lech, if I'm not mistaken. Lech is usually has been listed as a designated one of the designated Canadians, but we understand. Coach Moss and Danny Mack have a reason for this. But I'm still surprised now that this is probably the least amount of experience that the Alouettes have at running back in a very long time. And considering, we know what Davis Alexander can do. We know what McLeod can do. But still, there's two parts to this game. It's running and it's passing. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen, especially when we come up with Week 1 versus Toronto.
Now, if worse came to absolute worse, you do also have David Dallaire and Jacob Mason at the fullback position that could, in theory, serve as a running back. But I mean, these are big bruising guys that, again, would be more, if they're going to get used, it's going to be more for pass protection as opposed to actually running the rock. So it's not to say that, I mean, if you were truly in a pinch and needed to replace someone as a national running back, you could fall on those two guys. But at the same time, once again, that just, it really is about maintaining the ratio, a job that, oh my gosh, I don't know how this coaching staff and Danny Machocha do that, but I mean,
any coaching staffs.
Well, listen, I mean, we're not worried about the other coaching staffs. We're worried about this one here. I mean, it's going to be tough. And the fact that they have that much faith in Stevie Scott and TT to be able to basically be the 1-2 punch as far as the running back goes, I think that speaks a lot to the kind of camp that they had. And let's make one thing very clear, especially Travis. He did have an absolutely outstanding training camp, not just at running back, where he was just bowling people over. I mean, there was like shades of AJ Ouellette there as far as being like trying to tackle a bowling ball, which I think that basically earned him a spot on the team more than anything else. Being able to return the ball as well. He was also involved in kick and punt returns, especially this past Friday against Ottawa. And once again, was not afraid to lower the shoulder and get those extra yards as needed. That play alone, and you had even alluded to too in our personal group chat that, yeah, this guy's staying on. He's not going anywhere. And it's kind of funny how we see certain plays and we see certain players and we think, oh, this guy's got no question. This guy's going to be on the team. He's done everything right. But it's not until you get those cuts that you find out, yeah, I was right, or I was way off on this one.
By the way, I think one of the interesting things too is the guy that's been on and off the practice roster for quite a bit when it comes to the active and practice, and really only got a few reps in itself on the game on Friday was the Canadian Shedler Furvius. and he made the active roster.
Yep.
And again, that's one of the things I was trying to ask you before. Is that was there a surprise? Well, would that be considered a surprise for you being on the active roster rather than being on the practice roster based off of what we what we didn't see at camp? But then again, he has a good pedigree anyway since he's been with the Alouettes.
100%. And yes, he was also part of that Grey Cup winning team as well, which again, that's the thing. You can't use that as a excuse to keep a player or not keep a player either. I mean, all it means is, okay, you were in the right place at the right time, but it's when you are given those opportunities, what you do with them. And again, I felt like he had a very strong camp, and I think he is another one of those instances of being able to showcase what he can do. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Tyson Philpott is the number one national receiver on this team, without question.
Yeah, without question.
As a result, by default, almost, Shedler Furvius would be his backup. Like, he'd be coming in for him. You also have Hakeem Harris, who also had a pretty strong camp, was drafted this year by the Alouettes. Another big body receiver that can also is a national player. So I guess they feel very confident that it's going to be Philpott, then Furvius, then Harris, as far as your national receivers go. So, I mean, there's definitely talent.
Don't forget about Sibasu. He is a national, and he's considered a wide receiver. So
100%. Again, he's more renowned for his special teams prowess than anything else, but he too, if called upon, can catch the rock. So as far as the national position goes, I mean, because a lot of people would say, okay, well, once Tyson Philpott goes down, who's going to replace him? Well, there's your answer. You got 3 bona fide receivers right there that can definitely step up. And truthfully, especially in the case of Furvius and Harris, they just need the opportunity. They just need to get out there and get some actual reps in for you to be able to see what they can do. And there's no question in my mind is that the opportunity comes, they're both going to make magic happen, especially Furvius. I mean, we did, as you alluded to, we did see him a little bit this past Friday, and honestly, he got thrown 2 really lousy balls and can only do so much with that. But I think it was one of those cases that, okay, we got to get you out there somehow, just for the sake of being out on the field and doing something. Like, it was almost like your spot is safe. You got nothing to worry about. You're just going to go out and do what you do best. And
a reverse Senecal, where it was he was okay coming late in, but then removing Senecal at the end of the game with James Morgan. Yeah, okay,
yeah. I guess that's one way to describe it.
Let's and by the way, to your one thing you said earlier, if Tyson goes down, Tyson's not going down. Tyson's not going down.
No. We've had enough injured Philpotts over the past couple of years. So
yeah, no kidding.
We need to see this year both Tyson and Jalen Philpott ball out for the respective clubs. I mean, it's funny. We even talked about with Tyson, like, it's a little disappointing that he didn't come to Jalen didn't come to Montreal, and that would have solved your receiver problem, your national receiver problem right there and then. And maybe as a result of that, maybe that's another reason why Shedler Furvius is going to get the chance to shine. As soon as his number is called, he's going to. There's no question in my mind, he's going to go out and ball out big time. But could you imagine if both Philpotts were on the Alouettes? I mean, that wouldn't suck at all.
No, it would not. But now let's look at some of these guys that we expected to be on there, and then there's some new guys. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. By the way, I would think for Theis, could he be the next Cole Speaker or Tyler Snead? Is it possible?
Listen, I mean, the potential is there. There's no question. I mean, as I talked about, he had a hell of a camp as far as, to the point where the Alouettes felt comfortable in letting Walter Fletcher, an established CFL veteran who's won a Grey Cup with your team and had a banner year last year, to have that sort of comfort level in him. I mean, if I'm Travis, I'm excited. I'm like, wow, I belong here. And again, he's going to get the chance to show right away what he's able to do. And to me, that's going to be very exciting to watch as well, because as I said, he was so tough to take down, and he, like a Timex watch, takes a licking and keeps on ticking. I mean, that's phenomenal to see. I mean, do I think he's going to replicate what Walter Fletcher could do this year? Only time's going to tell. I mean, Stevie Scott too. I mean, both these guys now have a very big challenge in front of them. I mean, I have a feeling this offense is going to be based on just how well Davis Alexander can sling the rock. And again, he's got no shortage of talented receivers to catch the ball. The running backs crew, though, they need some love as well. They need to be able to showcase what they can do, and especially giving a chance for the offensive line to create those holes so that guys like Stevie Scott and TT can get out there and just, ground and pound and then turn on the jets as needed. And these guys can do that as well, in addition to Sean Thomas Erlington. So as far as this offense goes, I think there's definitely a lot to like. I think there's a lot of initial question marks, but I have a feeling it all starts this coming Friday, June 6th, against the Toronto Argonauts at home. We're going to see these guys in action. And I'll be honest, I'm excited to see if these guys can live up to the hype.
That's what I'm hoping for too, because I never thought I understand where we are. We do have some experience of why at running back, but still, I never thought we'd go into the first game of the regular season with this. I don't want to call it question marks. I would just call it concerns within the running game itself. But they just have to, as you said, they just got to prove themselves. Talk about some of the guys that did make the roster that are new this year. What do you thought about Jordan Veazey, man? Jordan Veazey made the roster. He said, "See, and trying to look at some of the others here that made this roster." Because it's just a matter of where we're going to slot these guys in, because obviously Tyson at one side, Mack at the other, because please don't forget about Austin Mack. I'm curious to see what this guy can do this year. And some of the others, some of the names I mentioned Tyler Snead, Cole Speaker, Charleston Rambo. Where do you put Veazey when it comes to the depth chart, Cliff?
Wow. I mean, he's another one who's going to have to fight for reps. I mean, that's just the long and short of it, simply. I mean, you've also got Charleston Rambo, who is no doubt going to add on to his phenomenal rookie campaign of 2024. Yeah. I mean, this is a young man too. This wide receiving core is lethal when you think about the veterans, the youngsters. I mean, there is no shortage of guys who can catch the football for this team. I mean, my goodness. I'm really excited. I think, I talked about this earlier. Do not be surprised if you see 4 receivers, maybe even 5, if they're able to get on the field. 5 receivers could possibly break the 1,000-yard mark this season, especially with the way that Davis Alexander throws this ball. My goodness, I think we're going to see a lot of long bombs. We're going to see some moonshots. We're going to see some absolute bombs being thrown this year. And look at the guys that are going to be catching them. When you talk about Speaker, Snead, Mack, Rambo, I mean, the list goes on and on. Philpott, again, there's no question in my mind. There is going to be a lot of offense this year from the Alouettes, and they are going to make a lot of noise, and it is going to be phenomenal. I mean, barring something catastrophic happening to this receiving core, maybe guys like Jordan Veazey and Hakeem Harris are going to have to fight for table scraps, but that just speaks to just how talented this wide receiver group is. And they're going to get their time to shine too. And maybe it'll just be later in the year, maybe when the games don't count as much, because the Alouettes have already sewn up the division, hopefully. You never know. I mean, that's how football is sometimes. But the minute these guys get on the field, guys like Veazey and Rambo get on the field and showcase that, hey, we belong in that same group as the Austin Macks and the Tyson Philpotts and so on. I mean, that's where the true, if they thought the battle was over because they got a spot on the active roster, nope, not by any stretch. If anything, the work is just getting started, and it starts this week with the first game.
I don't mind that with the Owls being blessed at wide receiver. I really don't. I'm just curious. I said I'm confident in the quarterback room. I am confident in the wide receiver room. Everybody knows how I feel currently, at least right now, until we see what happens when it comes to the running backs. Thoughts on the other, obviously on both sides, the other guys are going to be doing the protecting. Number 1 draft pick Tiger Shanks does make the active roster. Going to be curious to know where he's going to be slotted in, but considering how many different sides and different positions he played in the regular season, I'm curious to know where they're going to end up slotting our number 1 pick.
I think that's why, as far as right tackle goes, I mean, you look at Jamar McGloster, you look at Joshua Donovan, who was unceremoniously let go by this team. I think it was because Tiger Shanks did have himself a really great camp, that even though he's typically seen more as a guard, he may have done just enough. Especially he played right tackle this past Friday in Ottawa, and once again was able to give the quarterback time and space to be able to do what he does best. So I mean, that speaks to how well he's come along in such a short time. To have that confidence to let an absolute unit like Joshua Donovan go is, again, that just speaks to how well Tiger Shanks has acclimated himself already to this offensive line. I mean, the talent here is second to none as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's definitely some beef here. And another pleasant surprise to see Donald Ventrelli, who also got quite a bit of time on the offensive line this past Friday. He got in there, and he's now a part of this active roster as well, along with Jesse Gibbon. These are guys, you talk about this depth, and a lot of people were concerned about offensive line. Are they going to be able to create those holes for guys like Stevie Scott and Travis Tice to be able to do what he does best? I think yes. I think these guys will definitely do that. I think, of course, pass protection is the most important thing. You got to keep your quarterback upright, because if he's spending more time being on the ground than upright and throwing touchdown bombs, that's not good for your offensive line. Like that's not going to be good for their confidence. But I look at the starting lineup, and there is so much to like here. I think that this offensive line is going to do what I expect them to do, and that's give Davis Alexander or MBT a chance to truly make plays happen, to truly get out there, huck the ball downfield, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think this offense is really going to take a lot of people by surprise, because I'm sure a lot of people are looking at some of the moves that were made and think, can this Alouettes team score points? Because, yeah, the defense is great, but you got to score points. You got to put points on the board. There's no question in my mind this year that the Alouettes will put points on the board in 2025. How they will do it, there's any number of ways they can, but this Alouettes team, as it sits right now, offensively, looks pretty darn good.
Then you got to talk about being able to score points and be able to stop certain teams. Obviously, you have the defense. One thing we haven't mentioned, we see what their status is coming up, is obviously free agent acquisition Joshua Archibald was still on the listed as a one-game list. Same thing with Deontay Ruffin. But the thought to Cliff is that with them getting rid of Bryce Cosby, thoughts on that? Because there's been, ever since Reggie Stubblefield since he got hurt last year and has summarily left the team via free agency, it's always been a question of who's going to take over his spot on the in the defensive backfield. It makes me wonder who the Alouettes are going to slot in there. And I think we've seen some different guys in the preseasons. There's been talk in the media and stuff like that when it comes to who could potentially, and who's looked good in camp to do that. Who do you think is going to be the one that's really going to stand out when it comes to the defensive line?
On the defensive line, you got absolute studs on the defensive line. Guys like Lowell Ugalak, Isaac Adeyemi Berglund, Sean Oakman, who's, as we talked about, what a massive man that is. Another name that came up that played extremely well was Byron Vaughns, and also well enough for him to become a part of this active roster as well.
Very active on Friday. True. Yep.
Yeah. Again, we're also hoping the best for Mustafa Johnson as well. He's still his injury status is still kind of up in the air, but obviously looking forward to seeing Moose back as well. Dylan Wynn and Antonio Moultrie, also two guys that, when called upon, can definitely inflict some pain on opposing offenses, getting to the quarterback as well, and making them pay. I mean, this defensive line is just as national talent alone looks fearsome. But you add in these other gentlemen as well. My God. I mean, I fully expect them to stop running backs dead in their tracks. I expect them to plow through offensive lines and get to the quarterback and sack them, or create opportunities for the linebackers to come in and get the quarterback sack. I mean, this defensive line is definitely one that is going to be very dangerous and just dripping with talent. Let's not forget, Isaac Adeyemi Berglund was voted he was the Eastern rep as most outstanding Canadian. Why? Because he did those things extremely well for the Alouettes, and everybody had no choice but to sit up and take notice. And quite frankly, maybe he should have been the most outstanding Canadian. And I think losing to Brady Oliveira at the CFL Awards, there's no question in my mind that's going to light a fire under him. Like, he wants to showcase and prove that everybody made a mistake, because it was so egregious. I mean, I'm not saying that Brady Oliveira didn't deserve most outstanding Canadian. I'm saying that Isaac Adeyemi Berglund also deserved, and he definitely deserved a lot more than just one vote. in that. So I think that was just enough bulletin board material for him to go and showcase that. Yeah, he's the leader. He's going to be that leader that you need. And when Joshua Archibald comes back in as well, yet another national defensive lineman. Oh boy, it is going to be fun. It is going to be a lot of fun to watch this Noah Thorpe defense just carve people up.
Obviously, stay tuned to all of our socials for any upcoming information that may come out. Obviously, remember on Thursday, the depth charts will be released. We will be putting them out on all of our socials. We do have a podcast coming up on Wednesday, so stay tuned for the next episode of the Alouettes Flight Deck podcast. And also, too, it is the season opener on Friday at Percival Molson Stadium versus the defending champions, the Toronto Argonauts. Also stay tuned for our socials for the next episode and when we're going to go live for Flight Deck Live, because we will be there at Percival Molson Stadium to give our thoughts on the season opener for the Alouettes. Again, Cliff, there are again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, there are sometimes we do have the surprises and the WTF looks that we might give and stuff like that. But all in all, despite the changes, the organization seems to have a plan for what's going to happen, and coming up, Al's Nation just needs to give them a chance and see what they can do on Friday versus the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, and again, I totally get it. For fans that are going, "What the hell? Why did you release so and so? How could you not get this guy on the team in some way?" I mean, it's understandable to question a lot of these things. Listen, we've been doing that for the past few years now. They're just questioning a lot of the decisions. But you know what? Okay, I won't say 9 times out of 10, but more often than not, let's put it that way. The moves that were made ended up being the right moves in order for this team to be competitive. And let's be honest, we've had it pretty good here in Alouettes Nation as far as how this team has performed over the past couple of years. And let's not forget, doing that with the lowest salary cap, like the lowest salary in the Canadian Football League. And it's not because it's not a matter of being too cheap to pay players. It's a matter of getting the most value for your money. And I think the Alouettes have done a very good job of that over the past couple of years. Once again, with the lowest salary in the league in 2023, they go out and win the Grey Cup. In 2024, lowest salary again, the best record of the league, almost going back to the Grey Cup. 2025, well, don't know exactly the salaries just yet in that regards, but again, if they happen to be the lowest team and they end up winning the most games or going to the Grey Cup or doing any number of wonderful things that make this team the success that it has been over the past couple of years, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You can question a lot of the moves that this organization and Danny Machocha have made, but you definitely can't argue with the results. I mean, if you like winning football, you've come to the right place, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's no two ways about it. This Alouettes team, the moves they make, I know it's tough, especially when you get attached to players and you buy their jersey because you think they're going to be around for a long, long time. And even when you sign a contract, like, okay, 2-year contract, surely this guy's going to be around for those 2 years. Doesn't always work out that way, folks. It's tough. It's unfortunate, but I mean, the only thing I can say is you got to trust the process, because more often than not, this team is not going to lead you down the wrong path. I mean, I think the way things are organized now, the way that this organization is from top to bottom, you got the right people running things right now. You got to trust the decisions they're making. They're not going to be perfect, but they're going to be the right ones. It's just going to take time. It's going to take an open mind for you to see what they've been able to accomplish. And I'll be honest, I really like how this team is built right now. Would I have loved to see Walter Fletcher still be a part of it? Should he still be a part of it? I'll say yes, because I mean, I know what Fletch has been able to do, but if others are able to come in and do the same job, then this train just keeps on rolling, right? I mean, that's how you have to look at it. I mean, at the end of the day, you want this Alouettes organization to put the best possible product on the field. And there's no question in my mind that come this Friday, the best possible team will be on the field, and they're going to do everything they can to get themselves to the Grey Cup in Winnipeg later this year.
We thank everybody for joining us for our special here tonight. And again, stay tuned to all of our socials as we're all waiting for the opener on Friday versus the Toronto Argonauts. They were always saying, the hashtag, is it June yet? Well, hashtag, yes, it is June.
It is June, folks, 100%. So stop asking.
Yes. So again, we will talk to you on Wednesday, and if not, we'll talk to you on Thursday. But remember, if you missed any part of this broadcast, there are ways you can watch it. You can check out the archive over on YouTube, Facebook, and over on X. So for the last time tonight,
Oh,
for Cliffy
actually,
D,
before
yeah,
you let everybody go, maybe if you haven't already, folks, make sure you head over to flightdeckgear.ca. Go get yourself the Le Big Back t-shirt. I don't have it with me right now, but it is absolutely amazing. Or any of our other new products that are going to be coming out as well. Make sure you check out flightdeck.ca. I believe we still have our promo code LBM. Save 10% on checkout, if I'm not mistaken.
I will probably have to do a new one because I don't think it's currently active. So I will check.
Well, buy the stuff
Yes,
anyways, folks.
it is still active. It is still active through the end of tonight, I think.
There you go. So again, if you love the show, folks, and you really want to help us out, which we definitely appreciate, definitely head over to flightdeckgear.ca. Go buy some merch, anything you want. Use the promo code, save a few bucks, and hey, rock that stuff, man. Rock that stuff at Personal Stadium. Come see us. We'd be excited. We'd be thrilled to see it on you. So yeah, definitely make sure you go out and you get the merch. Simply put.
Exactly. So see you guys soon. We do promise that. So for everybody here at Flight Deck Live, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We'll talk to you soon.